Hello, I'm Liselle Sambury. I'm a traditionally published author and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to do something that I think will be fun and hopefully will be fun for you too. So a year ago, actually like a little over a year ago, I made a video guessing some trends that I thought would come up in young adult in traditional publishing. And so I have that video linked in the description below if you want to check it out first. But I decided it would be fun now that it's been a year to look back at these and to discuss the predictions I had and to see if I was right and if I predicted some things. So yeah, I just think that'll be fun to see what like actually came up and what I was like completely wrong about and what I was maybe right about. And you know, maybe this year I need to do another prediction video so that I can go back to it a year from now. But anyway, so I'm gonna get my headphones on, I'm gonna get the video up for you, and we will check it out and we will see what I was right about or wrong about. So I've got my trusty iPad ready. I will have a little square over here for you to watch along with me. And I did do a little disclaimer at the beginning of this video that I will reiterate here. I do not have any special insider knowledge. These are pure guesses that I made purely for fun. So that's all I will say about that. And let's go ahead and play. My first prediction for YA trends is horror. I think horror is gonna like blow up as a genre in YA, and I'm not just saying that because I have a horror on submission because I like
sold that horror.
I'm writing horror now. I feel like that's the way the wind's been blowing for the last couple of years popping up. So Tiffany D Jackson announced that she has 2 horrors that are coming, and then Bethany C. Morrow, like off the back of it, announced that she had a horror book coming out, and I was like, Bethany C. Morrow's horror, Cherish Farah, is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think it is such a fantastic book. I think it is so like, it's just chef's kiss. So it's kind of fun seeing myself being like anticipating it and like getting excited for it and knowing that I've now read it and loved it. Anyway, and I feel like it's just like the wave is going to move to YA, and like when those announcements came out for horror, I was like, and especially like fantasy horror, because fantasy is already so big and like saturated, but like when you pull yourself into like this fantasy horror, like this dark fantasy horror genre, you kind of give yourself more space. So I think that horror is gonna be the next big thing. I think we're gonna like see a boom of young adult horror. So that was what I had to say about horror. I will pull myself slightly to the side so I'm more in frame. And I think I was right. I think I was right about YA horror. Like looking at the announcements that have been coming out, the books that have been coming out, I think in 2020, is that the right year? Yes. I saw some like a little trickling, is that when I made this? No, I made this video in 2021. I feel like there was a small trickle of like horror books, you know, that were like on the horizon, and I feel like it's just exploded since then. Like I honestly really think I called this one right. I've seen a lot of horror books announced. I've seen a lot of, you know, horror books that are already coming out in 2022, and that are coming out later on. And so I really do feel like YA horror is really having a big moment. I'm seeing a lot more titles coming out, a lot more available. And yeah, it's been really cool to see. Like I personally, of course, am enjoying the wave. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot more of that. That's been exciting. And I've also been seeing a lot more of like adult horror coming out from diverse authors, which has been really cool as well. So I do honestly think that I was right about this one. I really do think that like YA horror is having its big moment. Are having a comeback. That's very obvious. There's lots of vampire books coming out, mostly from established authors, and now we're seeing more like debut vampires, so like newer authors getting their fangs into it. I hate myself
if you want to get
that.
cheesy there. And so that my prediction is not vampires, because vampires is already happening. My prediction is werewolves. Werewolves. So I just like, once you do vampires, like you can't start doing vampires and not do werewolves. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's just the natural progression. And also internally, I want to see werewolves flourish.
You do still want
I
to
don't
see
really
that.
like vampires. I don't have a lot of interest in vampires.
I still don't have
They're too frou-frou.
interest.
It's like too elegant. It's too much for me. But werewolves, rough and tumble, gritty, very interested in werewolves. And I just feel like it's just the way it's gonna go, you know? We just need the one new werewolf book,
Still
you
waiting.
know, to kick
Still
it
waiting
off.
for that.
Or like maybe somebody just needs to add it into their little vampire series. I just feel like that's the way it's gonna go. Do I have any concrete examples for this? Can I point to any werewolf books that are being sold? Absolutely not. But it just seems like the way it should go.
So I think I was definitely wrong on the werewolves. It's not really it. I think there have been some like werewolf books that have like stood out. Like I know Squad, which is I believe it's like a YA graphic novel. I know that I saw that one a lot of places and that one seemed to do really well. And I've seen just like some other, I think, werewolf books around, but it definitely didn't become this thing of like a bunch of people suddenly writing werewolf books the way that people were with vampire books. And I think people are honestly still writing vampire books. So I think I don't think I was correct on this one. And I don't have the confidence to say that maybe I was just too early and like next year we'll see that werewolf boom. I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's coming. I think people went vampires and then they stopped there and they were good with that. I don't think they're going all the way to werewolf. So I'm going to count myself wrong on that one.
Anthologies. This is my next one. So I don't know if this is like truly a future YA trend or if this is just a present trend, but I remember there was a period of time where people were like, anthologies don't sell. Anthologies sell poorly. We can't just keep doing anthologies over and over again. Like they don't sell well. And so like there was this like I don't know if it's even Whisper Network, but there was definitely an idea that anthologies were not doing well. And yet so many anthologies keep being sold. Like, so I feel like anthologies are probably doing a lot better than we think, or maybe publishers just don't care and they're just like anthology. But I think we're just gonna keep seeing more and more short story anthologies, and it's just gonna be like a big boom. And especially like I think we're already seeing this really like a reimagining of how anthologies can be done. So like the whole Broken Mirror series, like it's not an anthology, but it's several authors and each one is writing a book in a series. So it's like not an anthology, but it's a similar sort of thing. Or like Blackout that's coming, that was announced. That's an anthology, but the stories are interconnected, that sort of thing. So I don't think anthologies are going anywhere. That's my prediction.
I think I was right. Anthologies are going nowhere. Anthologies are going absolutely nowhere. And I can't remember if it was like a Twitter discourse or where I heard where like people were like anthologies don't sell and blah, 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 blah. I can't even like remember / pinpoint where that was, where it was like, it felt like people were saying anthologies are on their way out. But no, anthologies, as far as I can see, as booming as ever, as popular as ever. And I do think that I was on point with talking about the different ways that anthologies can be imagined. So Blackout, which came out, that one, and now they've announced Whiteout, which is going to be like during a blizzard in Atlanta, I believe. And so that is happening. So those interconnected story anthologies. And there's also a fantasy anthology. I cannot remember the title right now, which is annoying me, but it was a fantasy anthology that was announced that was doing kind of a similar thing. So it was like a bunch of interconnected stories, but in a fantasy world. I want to say set at a school, where you have all these interconnected stories. So it's an anthology, but they're connected in the same way as like Blackout was. Like people, they were connected or they were coming together and things like that, and it was happening in the same setting. And so I think that has definitely come to light of like imagining the different ways an anthology could be. But yeah, I think anthologies are still going to be coming out. I think they're still big. I don't think that shows any sign of stopping. So I expect anthologies to continue on.
All the fluffy rom-coms. This is my feel. I feel that there will be, these predictions are interacting strangely, because now I'm imagining this huge boom of horror and dark fantasy alongside this boom of fluffy rom-coms. I just think that the way COVID was going, like back when it's not exactly better.
Still not.
But you know,
still not bad.
Back when it was like, when there was no hope, when it felt like it was only going to get worse.
Hump.
I think then, like, there was definitely a feeling that editors were like, send me happy stuff. Send me the rom-coms, send me the romance, send me the cute things that make me forget about what's happening in life. And so I just feel like, what happened to all of those? Something must have happened to all of those books, because those were the books that were being requested. So I imagine that people were submitting to them, and I feel like a bunch of them sold. And I feel like it's just, we're gonna, down the pipeline, you know, when they start announcing stuff for 2023, or like even not even 2023, maybe even 2022, we're gonna start to see this boom of all of these cute fluffy rom-coms that all the editors wanted to read to not feel sad during, you know, the bleakest COVID times. Again, not necessarily much better, but you know, I guess there were bleaker times. But I just expect to see those, you know, explode, and that we'll suddenly have like all these announcements coming up for all these like super fluffy cute rom-coms. So
I think I'm not sure about this one. Because I feel like I feel like this wasn't quite on base for YA. Though maybe it is. It's really hard. And I think this is a problem of me, because I don't really read a lot of YA contemporary or YA romance. And so I think I naturally haven't been paying enough attention to those announcements to feel like I'm suddenly been seeing a bunch of those. I feel like I've definitely seen some, but I don't know that I've seen so many that I'm like, yeah, this is like the trend. Versus I think like in an adult scene, but I think in adult there's always been a lot of romance, and I'm not familiar enough with adult really to speak on trends that much. So yeah, I don't know about this one. What do you think about this one? Do you feel like there was suddenly like a resurgence in YA rom-coms? I don't really know if I'm right about that one. But, and what I think has been interesting in like my thought process of like editors being sad and wanting a lot of happy fluffy things, is I have seen a huge amount of middle grade. Like in the last like few publisher marketplace emails, which are the emails that like announce deals that are coming up. And so I get those emails to my inbox. And so I'll see announcements for books that aren't coming out for like 2-3 years, because I can see that. That's also kind of how I was like, oh yeah, I think this trend is up and coming because I'm seeing a bunch of these announcements. So I'm seeing things before, like 2-3 years before the book is actually going to be on shelves. So anyway, in looking at those announcements, I've noticed in the last few, and I've had some friends that have noticed as well, that there's been more middle grade announcements than there have been YA announcements, which I found really interesting. And I'm kind of wondering if that I want happy fluffy things actually ended up translating into I want happy fluffy middle grade, versus like happy fluffy YA. And so now I'm like, maybe I miscalculated that, and that was how that went down. But yeah, I don't know about that prediction. I don't know if I was on that one or if I was completely off. Really hard for me to tell. And this is the final one.
My final prediction. And this one is a little bit controversial.
Oh, it's controversial, apparently.
And I know it's controversial, but I'm going to say it because I think it's going to happen. I
can't remember what this is.
Partially, it's like of two parts. Because I have faith in people and because I don't have faith in people. But it is the pandemic novel. It's going to happen, I feel. And so I feel there's two parts to this.
Okay.
So I think there's going to be the people that do the bad take pandemic novels, like they write some weird fantasy. It's just like a bad like I feel like those are coming, and you might think, wow, but why would publishing buy that? And like, sometimes publishing is wild.
It's true.
Sometimes it is so wild with the stuff they pick up. And so I do not doubt that someone out there might be like, yep, I want that hot take fantasy pandemic novel. I think if it got shut down, it would be shut down for being dystopian way more than it would be shut down for being pandemic aligned. So there's that half of it, but there's also the other half of it. And I feel like people will find a way to address how, you know, teen lives were affected by the pandemic in a way that is like focused on like character development and like inner stuff and like less pandemic stuff. And I think that will have its time in the sun coming up, especially like looking like 3 to 5 years down the line, assuming that things get better. I feel like after a 1 year buffer, we're gonna start to see those roll out, because it's just like, it's the way people are. And I just expect it of people. And I think that it's going to happen regardless of whether anyone asked for it.
So I think I was 100% wrong on this one. 100% wrong on this one. There has not been a sudden proliferation of pandemic novels. I think that at this time when I was filming, I would have thought that by this time, the pandemic would be over. I think that was the mindset I was in. And so I thought people would want to write that, but it's not over. Even though some countries, people acting like it is. That's not. So, yeah, I definitely haven't seen that. I haven't seen a sudden burst of pandemic novels hitting the scene. Yeah, people don't seem to have interest in that, or that is not selling, whether people don't want to write that or whether publishers don't want to buy that. I haven't seen like this big influx of that, which is not to say that there are none of those. Because I believe there was like an anthology that was about that was about like, you know, being in quarantine, and following different teens during that journey. But it didn't become a trend at all. And I think we'll probably continue to see people kind of sidestep around the pandemic in their work. I think, you know, that's something I've kind of been doing. Like, I'm not writing teens that are kind of referencing it, just because it hasn't been something that I felt that has need to be in there. And I felt like I've been able to just kind of like not have it in there. And so yeah, I think that's kind of how it's been. And so I was definitely like very off base with that prediction, I think. That's it for this Did I Predict YA Trends video. I just thought this would be fun to kind of look at the things that I'd guessed might be on the horizon and like if it was right or not. If you have your own predictions for what you think will be like up and coming, not just even in like YA, but like you can go wider with that, like definitely put them in the comments and like share your theories. Maybe if I do this again, I'll like incorporate some of those comments as well to kind of be like, was anyone in the comments right? And I do think it'll be fun to like do another predicting video, so I probably will do another one at some point in this year, because I've already got some like percolating thoughts and feelings about what I think is going to be up and coming. And yeah, so I just think those are really fun. I don't ever think people need to like, for example, like write to trend or anything like that, or you need to be trend chasing or things like that. For one, it's like very difficult to predict. And for another, usually by the time you like start to see a trend, even if you've got those like publishing emails, usually by the time you start to see a trend emerge, like it's already passed. So there's not a lot of point in like forcing yourself to like chase it. I think you should write what you want and what your heart wants to write. But I do find it really interesting because I'm kind of like, you know, I guess I consider myself a publishing nerd in that way. I find those things really fun. I find it interesting to like see patterns in what's being published and like what's being kind of up and coming. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.